Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. This is a little bit a different video than I normally do. I get a lot of questions about a lot of things, so in my videos, sometimes I try to address some of those questions. One of the most common questions I get is, why do people collect records? And obviously, that's not a question I get from record collectors because they get it. But, I own a shop in Matthews, North Carolina. And when I'm sitting there running the shop very regularly, we're on kind of a strip with, there's an antique shop, there's a couple restaurants, there's a pawn shop. So occasionally we get people that walk in and they're like, what is going on in here? What are y'all doing? This is weird. Why are people collecting records? And usually they're older people. They just don't get it. They are like, this doesn't make sense to me. Why don't you just listen to the music like online like everybody else? And so this video is just kind of dedicated if you have people in your life that ask you, why do you collect records, to send in this video. But anyways, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do that. It'll help me out a ton. And you follow me on social media if you're into that, at Noble Records on Instagram. You can keep up with all the crazy stuff that's going on in our shop. So the first thing that came to mind, and I did ask a bunch of people. I put out there on Instagram, I asked, why do you guys collect records? Because there's a lot of different type of collectors that collect for different reasons. But one of the main reasons I get, and I concur with, is sound quality. There's always been the debate of what sounds better, records or CDs. Now, there are high quality like SACDs, and there's like really expensive CD players. That's a whole nother ball game. Most people aren't on that level when it comes to CDs. They just listen to them in their car, or they might have a CD player in their house or on their computer or something. So, but on the level in the same right, a lot of people have like the suitcase turntables, and those don't sound any better than CDs. So if you have a good sound system and a good record, the record's, in my opinion, going to sound better. Or for my money, it's going to sound better, because you have to sink a lot of money into a really good CD player and really high quality CDs for it to sound better. And CDs, for whatever reason, when I'm holding the CD in my hand, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't know, but this is just one I pulled out. This is Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? It bridges the two things. This is an incredible sounding original copy, first pressing, and also second point is nostalgia. I remember being 16 years old the first weekend I got my license. I went around to a bunch of yard sales, and this old lady had a bunch of records out at a yard sale, and it was the first time I was able to find a copy of this. I had all of Jimi Hendrix's other albums. Was the only one I needed, and I looked for it for years and couldn't find one. And it's funny now because I get them pretty regularly. By the time I couldn't find one, and I was so thrilled to get it and bring it home and put it on my turntable. And even though I wasn't raised like the format of records when I was a kid was either cassettes or CDs, but I got into records because they were cheap at the time. They're not as cheap anymore, but at the time they were cheaper than CDs. They were cheaper than anything else. So I started getting into them that way, because that was the format of music that all my favorite music was originally on anyways. So, but nostalgia is a huge part of that. There are people that were raised back when, obviously in the 60s and 70s, sometimes 50s and 40s, that in their teenage years, they would go, they may go to, a grocery store or a drugstore and get a single, or they may go, plan a special trip once a week to the record store and save up money and buy their favorite album or whatever album that's coming out that week or whatever. I hear a lot of stories like that, and that these records just bring them back. A lot of the same people that walk in and they say, why do people collect records? If they stick around for more than a couple minutes, they're looking through them and they're like, oh man, this record, and so that's a huge aspect of it as well. Another really big aspect is the community aspect. In a record store, when you walk in, instantly you're making friends. Like that's the way it is for me anyways. in my shop, I like to kind of cultivate that quality into it, because learning about music from other people is a huge thing, but also, like, I mean, when other people are kind of into what you're into, and it's probably the same way with, like, people that are into comics and Comic-Con, and like people that are into stamp collecting or whatever, there's conventions for it, there's specialized shops for it, and there's community around it. So with records, it's no different. Community is a huge part of it, and like hanging out at a record store talking about music, that's a huge appeal to all of us. We all love that. The next one I hear a lot is the feel of a record in your hand. So this is the one I pulled out. This is Neil Young Harvest. This has got like a textured cover. It's got a really cool insert. It's got a really cool gatefold. And so, like, you have that touch, that feel of a record is tangible in your hands. I think that for years and years and years, you went from LP into, you had 8-tracks, you had cassettes, but then, like, one of my favorite documentaries is, there's a documentary called All Things Must Pass, and it's about Tower Records. I would highly recommend watching that documentary, but it basically shows how, like, they were on top of the world, they were killing it. They were, for decades they were selling LPs, and they were the biggest show in town. And then when they switched to CDs, and they had to kind of adjust the way they do things, but they still were able to switch CDs. And then the internet came out, and they were having to sell online. And then Napster came out, and like MP3s came out, and it just tanked them. It destroyed their whole business model. So, all that to say, I think that we got to a point to where we were so bad trying to figure out what the next format was, and a lot of times that was kind of contrived by the record label to sell more copies. So, like, they can sell one on CD, they can sell one on cassette, they can sell one on vinyl, and all that stuff. And I don't know if that's any different now, but when we got to a certain point to where we had just MP3s, so much less appealing. And I think that a lot of people realize, like, we skipped a step, and we missed the importance of the artwork. And the LP 12-inch is the best medium for artwork. It's just it's so visible. With the CD, it's so small, and you got that plastic case, and it doesn't do it for me. But at least CDs have the booklet and all that stuff. That I will give them that. But this is another one, 13th Floor Elevators. Really, really great. This reminds me of my friend Trevor. If you're watching this, he's the one that commented this on my Instagram, that 12-inch is the best format for artwork. And it really is. Like, there's so many that you can hold in your hands and just look. This is 13th Floor Elevators. The psychedelic sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators. Amazing record. But this is one that when you're flipping through records and you see this record, you're buying it, because the cover, it's such a great medium for artwork. And so I think that that's a huge appeal, is the artwork. There's inserts, there's posters. It's an incredible feeling of a record in your hand. You put it on, you read the liner notes, you find more out about the band. It's a whole experience. It's all cooked into that experience. Another thing is, when you're digging for records and you're looking for records, sometimes you discover records that you would never know if it wasn't for you finding it right there in person. That's a huge thing I love about collecting records. I remember when I was young, I was flipping through and I saw this record. This is the Meters, and I didn't know the Meters at that time. I was young, and I saw this Meters, Fire on the Bayou, and I was like, man, that looks like a really cool record. And I grabbed it, and I took it home and put it on my turntable, and I was like, great New Orleans funk, incredible stuff. But there's so many times where I'm flipping through records and I don't know what I'm looking at, and I see something. Even now, I've been doing this for 20 years, buying and selling records. I still find a record and I'll see the album cover and be like, what are you? You're coming home with me. I love it. And then that's a lot of ways to still discover music. which brings me to my next point. Like this album that I just got, this is called Bloodsuckers. And this is an album you can't listen to online. It's not accessible anywhere online. There's nowhere you can find it. You can't stream it. It's not on YouTube. It's not on any streaming platform. There's no way to hear this unless you find a copy in person. There's a lot of albums that way. But this is one, somebody just sent me a message on Instagram. They'd seen me talk about this in a video, and they're like, please, like, upload something, because I don't have any idea what this sounds like, and it looks really cool. But it's just, this is like you would think this would be like rock, but it's not. It's funk, soul. But anyways, like, this is just one of those things that there's a lot of albums like this that they've never been reissued. There's no copy of it online. You can't hear it any other way. So that's kind of cool. So in that aspect, there's a whole appeal of looking for something and finding it. Like, that is huge. The thrill of the hunt, we call it. And then another huge one is the historical aspect of finding a record. This is Blaze Foley's only original album. Blaze Foley was a singer-songwriter out of Texas. Incredible guy. Just, the stars didn't align for him when he was alive. And he tried to record an album and to make it, and just, he couldn't. And he never got anywhere with it. This is an album that there's such a story behind it. There's such a historical significance behind it. So he finally got to where he was going to be able to record an album. He went in the studio. He recorded this album on Vital Records. Right after he got it done, he got the album pressed, and they had all the copies there at the studio. And the guy that was running the studio was involved in some sort of drug business, I don't know, and the DEA went in and busted him, and they confiscated everything. And Blaze Foley, like, really wanted his albums, but they were in that DEA bust, and so they destroyed 400 copies of the album, and they gave Blaze Foley 100 in a box. That's the legend behind this. I don't know how true that is, but legend says that there's only 100 copies. I got this from a guy who back in the 80s, at some point, Blaze Foley had some of these rolling around in the back of his car and traded him a copy for a 6-pack. And that's how I got this record. It came secondhand from Blaze Foley himself. So that's just like knowing that he had this in the trunk of his car at some point. And Blaze Foley, this was one of 100 that he had. That's a huge draw for me. And there's a lot of records like that. They have a really rich story and just the history behind where's this record been, it's just, that's a huge draw to me. But there's a lot of reasons why, people collect vinyl. There's different types of collectors, like I said in the beginning of the video. There's people that are audiophiles, that they only listen to it for the sound quality, and they have to have the best sound system, and there's certain people that don't, that don't care as much about the sound quality. They want it more for the artwork and the history of it, and their records don't have to be super clean, and they don't have to have this mobile fidelity pressing or whatever, something fancy. They just want the album. And there's some people that they like hanging out in record stores. They like to hear about different types of music from people. They like to make friends that way. So there's nostalgia is like a huge one. The people that they're not into all that other stuff, and like another one, just thought right off the top of my head, there's a lot of DJs, they collect vinyl because that's how they sample things, that's how they find things, and that goes along with the digging aspect, is that they find things from digging through crates of vinyl to sample for their records and all that stuff. So I hope this helped. I hope to open up your eyes to why us crazy record collectors are collecting vinyl. It's not new to the world of records. There were always record collectors back in the 70s, people that saw something it was significant and they wanted to keep it because this is something that's unique. And so the collectability has always been there, but now that it's not the only format of music, people are like choosing between, okay, there's this one, this one, this one, this one. This is the one I go to, vinyl. So thank y'all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Instagram, turn your post notifications on. We always are uploading videos about album recommendations, big record collections we're finding, all that stuff. So hope you guys stick around, and we'll see you next time.